This happened over a decade ago, in 2012. I was 35 and a seasoned intelligence officer. I had experience dealing with biological warfare, but this mission felt different. I was sent to investigate strange reports of chemical spills in an abandoned town that seemed to exist only in whispers. When we arrived, the silence was heavy. Buildings were crumbling, and weeds took over empty lots. Rusty cars lined the streets, left like forgotten memories. I set up base in the old town hall. The air was stale, and the walls were peeling. As I looked around, a chill ran down my spine. I told myself to focus. I was trained for this, but something was off. While I was sorting through old files, I found a dusty box labeled security footage. I felt drawn to it. The video was shaky and hazy. It showed what looked like townspeople moving in odd, jerky ways. My heart raced. I couldn't tear my eyes away. The way they moved was unsettling. That night, strange noises echoed through the streets. It was just the wind, I told myself as I laughed nervously. I looked around, trying to reassure my team. They were whispering to each other, glancing over their shoulders. I felt their tension creep into me. I kept checking my surroundings. What was happening here? As the days passed, things worsened. We found symbols painted on walls. They seemed scratched in a hurry, desperate. I felt sick every time I saw one. Then 2 teammates started to forget things. They'd repeat questions as if trapped in a loop. I felt cold. What was affecting us? On the 3rd night, I stepped outside to clear my head. It felt darker than it should, like the shadows swallowed the light. I thought I heard voices, low murmurs that made my skin crawl. My heart raced as I walked toward the sound. Then I saw him. He was standing there, just staring at me. I called out, "Are you okay?" He didn't respond, just a blank stare, and then he smiled. But there was something wrong about his eyes. They were empty, devoid of any life. I couldn't breathe. I turned back, ready to head inside, but then I heard a shuffle behind me. My heart racing, I spun around. No one was there. My skin prickled with panic. I wanted to run, but a voice in my head told me to stay. On the 4th night, things escalated. I dreamt of the townspeople moving, their faces twisted in fear. When I woke up, I realized I couldn't ignore it anymore. We didn't just stumble into a chemical spill. We had walked into something much darker, something that shouldn't have existed. I looked for my team, but they were gone. Alone, I felt the weight of the town pressing in on me. I heard footsteps behind me, but when I turned to look, no one was there. Only shadows danced in the corners of my vision. I realized then that the forgotten town had claimed us. Maybe it wasn't the chemicals that affected our minds, but something lurking in the dark, something watching, something waiting. And I was still here, caught between the truth and the horror. I never forgot that smile, or the eyes that saw right through me. I came to find answers, but it felt like I brought something back instead, a darkness I couldn't shake. The next day, I forced myself to revisit the places we had explored. I had to find my team. They couldn't be far, could they? Each building felt like a tomb. I checked the school, the pharmacy, and the diner. Each one revealed nothing but echoes of neglect and despair. My pulse pounded in my ears, making it hard to think straight. As I wandered back toward the town hall, I noticed something strange in the ground. Symbols. The same ones we had seen on the walls, but here they were etched into the dirt. They glowed faintly. I knelt down, brushing my fingers over them. They felt warm, like they were alive. An uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. That's when I heard a sound again, shuffling footsteps. My heart raced as I turned, scanning the eerie street. This time, I wasn't just hearing things. I could see a figure at the end of the block, partly obscured by shadows. Was it one of my teammates? "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky yet desperate. The figure remained unmoving. Not trusting my instincts, I crept forward, drawn by a mix of fear and the flicker of hope. But as I got closer, the figure shifted, and I could see its face. It was one of my teammates, but his expression was blank, like the man from the night before. His eyes were glassy, reflecting nothing but darkness. Panic surged through me. I took a step back. "Jason, is that you?" No answer, just silence. I wanted to run. My instincts screamed to get away. But the question nagged at me. What had happened to them? What had they seen? I stepped closer, hesitantly reaching out. He turned his head slightly, as if he'd sensed my presence. The slightest twitch formed on his lips, a ghost of a smile. Yet I felt a chill run deeper than before. "Come on, let's go," I urged. "We need to regroup." I grasped his arm, and it felt cold, like he was made of ice. Suddenly he jerked his head, and his sunken eyes locked onto mine. There was a noise behind me, more footsteps. I turned sharply. Shadows emerged, moving closer. Panic twisted in my throat. I had to escape. I yanked on Jason's arm, but he didn't budge. His smile widened, revealing teeth that looked almost too sharp, too hungry. I stumbled backward, and that's when I saw them. More figures coming from the alleys, from doorways. They were all familiar faces, each twisted into that unnatural grin. I turned to run, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I dashed toward the town hall, heart pounding like a drum. Behind me, the shuffles grew louder, insistent. They were coming for me. I burst through the doors of the town hall, slamming it shut. The air was heavy, and the shadows pressed in. I had to find a way out. I grabbed a nearby table, pushing it against the door. Then my eyes fell on the dusty box marked security footage. That's when I remembered something. The footage, I hadn't watched it all. Whatever it showed could hold the key to understanding what was happening. I shuffled to my previous spot, fear mingling with desperation. Waves of panic crashed over me as I pulled the box closer. I knew I had to look again, but what if the truth was worse than I imagined? With a deep breath, I opened the box and activated the player. The screen flickered and my heart sank. What I saw next would change everything. The screen lit up, revealing static before it settled into a grainy image. It looked like our team's first day in the town. We were smiling, laughing, not a care in the world. I could hardly believe how naive we had been. As the scene played, scenes of us exploring together filled the air, but the crackling sound only amplified my anxiety. Then, everything shifted. The footage jumped without warning to a darker segment. The camera panned slowly, revealing one of the abandoned buildings. I recognized it. It was where we found the symbols. A shiver crawled up my spine as I watched. The atmosphere changed. It was clear our joyous exploration had taken a turn. The camera jerked as someone shouted off-screen. I leaned closer, heart racing, as the screen caught glimpses of my teammates, wide-eyed and terrified. They were backing away from something. I could see shadows, indistinct figures, moving around them. "Keep filming," someone yelled, but the voice wavered and echoed with fear. Suddenly, a loud crash resonated through the footage, and the frame shook violently. Then the madness began. Huddled figures emerged from the darkness, moving like marionettes. I squinted, struggling to comprehend what I was seeing. But the sight of my friends' faces, twisted in terror, sent a jolt through me. One by one, they were engulfed. A fleeting shot showed Jason, his expression frozen, before the screen went dark. My breath quickened, bewildered by the enormity of what I was witnessing. Was this really how it had gone down? The thought of those things descending on my friends, devouring them, was unbearable. I had to know more. I fumbled for the controls, rewinding to where the chaos began. I needed to see more, to understand what had happened. But before I could act, something smacked against the town hall door. My heart lunged into my throat as the door shuddered. They were here. I glanced towards the door, knowing I couldn't stay here. If that thing outside was Jason, what would I do? Couldn't just leave him, but I had no choice. I scanned the room, desperate for an escape route. That's when I noticed a window at the far side. It looked small, maybe just enough for me to fit through. I grabbed my pack and shoved the footage back into the box, letting instinct take over. Another crash against the door made me jump. I turned and bolted toward the window. I had to act fast. I could hear the whispers through the door, distorted and twisted. They weren't my friends anymore. They had become something else entirely. I reached the window, pushing it open with a loud creak. The sounds behind me grew more frantic. I swung my leg over the ledge and squeezed myself through. It was a tight fit, but I was determined to escape whatever darkness awaited inside. As I landed outside, I turned back towards the town hall. I felt a pang of guilt, but there was no time to dwell. I had to find my remaining teammates if they were still out there. But as I started to run, a chilling realization hit me. If they were in that condition, what chance did I have of saving them? Then I heard a voice. Someone was calling out for help. My heart raced again. Who was it? Was it one of my friends? Or something else entirely? The questions tore through my mind as I sprinted toward the sound. As I ran through the darkened streets, the voice grew louder. "Help, please!" It was a desperate cry, filled with pain and fear. I had to find the source. Each step felt heavier, my lungs burning in the chilled night air. But I couldn't lose hope. I turned a corner, jumping over debris scattered on the ground. The town was eerily silent, aside from the haunting call echoing through the empty buildings. My heart raced, both from fear and adrenaline. Was it a trap? Would I end up like my friends? I pushed those thoughts away. I needed to focus. Ahead, I spotted a figure in the dim light cast by a flickering street lamp. It was hunched over, shadowy against the backdrop of an old storefront. I squinted and called out, "I'm coming! Hang on!" As I got closer, the figure came into focus. It was a woman, her face streaked with dirt and her clothes tattered. She looked up, eyes wide with a mix of terror and hope. "Please, you have to help me. They're coming." My heart sank. Who? What's happening? She shook her head, panic rising in her voice. "I don't know, but they're not normal. I saw what they did to my friends." Tears streamed down her face. "You have to get me out of here." Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from the direction I'd just come. Instinct kicked in. I grabbed her wrist, pulling her to her feet. "We need to move." We tore down the street together, the shadows stretching around us like dark tendrils. The menacing sound of shuffling drew nearer. Every instinct screamed at me to run faster. I could sense the darkness closing in, pressing down on us. "Where do we go?" she shouted over the noise of our pounding footsteps. "Any place with walls," I yelled back, scanning my surroundings. Just then, I spotted the entrance to an old diner. The door hung slightly ajar, a flicker of safety. We dashed inside, pushing the door shut behind us. I leaned against it, breathless, my fists clenched tightly. The inside was dim, with scattered furniture and broken glass. Dust hung in the stale air, and the only light came from the moon filtering through dirty windows. I spotted a booth that looked more intact and pulled the woman toward it. "What's your name?" I asked, trying to catch my breath. "Amy," she replied, still shaking. "I didn't think anyone else was alive." "Neither did I," I said, my mind racing. "What did you see? Who are they?" Her eyes darted around the room, breaking my focus. They were just people at first, but then they changed. They shouldn't have survived. They're not right. As she spoke, I heard a soft scratching sound at the door. It sent chills down my spine. They were here. Before I could process it, the door rattled. Whatever was out there wanted in. I shuffled further back into the booth, pulling Amy with me. We need a plan, something to defend ourselves. Just as I scanned the room for anything that could serve as a weapon, a chilling realization hit me. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. I had to survive. Then, without warning, the door burst open. The dark silhouettes rushed inside, and I froze. This wasn't over. Not yet. The figures crashed through the door, a swirl of shadows and sounds that made my pulse quicken. I barely had time to process what I was seeing before they surged toward us. They looked like people, at least at first glance. But there was something off, something undeniably wrong. Their skin hung loosely, almost like it was peeling away from their bones. Their eyes were wide, devoid of any humanity. A low growl escaped one of them, sending chills racing down my spine. "Get down!" I shouted, shoving Amy to the floor just as I ducked behind the booth. The splintered wood offered little protection, but it was all we had. The creatures lurched forward, eyes scanning the room. I heard their raspy breathing and the sound of claws scraping against the linoleum. I could see one of them, a man once, clutching a broken chair leg as if it were a weapon. The absurdity of it made my stomach churn. "Do you have anything?" Amy whispered. Her voice trembled against the chaos. "Just my fists," I replied, trying to sound steadier than I felt. "But we need to find something sharp." I shifted my gaze around, searching frantically. Across the diner, the counter leaned precariously, its surface littered with the remnants of long-forgotten meals. Something gleamed just beyond the reach of the darkness. Knives. "I'll go," I whispered. "No," Amy protested, her grip tightening around my wrist. "What if they see you?" I took a breath. "We can't stay here. It's a matter of time. I'll be quick. Just stay low." With a nod, I crawled forward, careful to keep my body hidden from view. The growls grew louder. I could feel their presence, smell the decay that surrounded them. I darted from the booth toward the counter, keeping my head low. I reached the edge and peered over. A couple of knives lay strewn beside a coffee pot. Heart racing, I snatched one up and turned to head back. That's when I heard it, a crash from behind me. I turned just in time to see one of the creatures vault over the booth. It landed heavily, the sound reverberating through the diner. My breath hitched. "Amy!" I shouted. She was still behind a booth, wide-eyed but unmoving as another creature closed in on her. I felt a surge of fear and anger. "Amy, run!" In a blur of chaos, I sprinted back, knife held tightly in my hand. I lunged forward and slashed at the creature's arm, feeling the blade bite into its flesh. It howled, retracting, and I pivoted, grabbing Amy's arm and yanking her with me. The other figures were closing in, their growls echoing in the diner. We needed a way out, and fast. "Back door!" I shouted, pushing through the crowd of shadows. They were relentless, clawing at us as we moved, but I fought to keep my focus. Just as we slammed through the door at the back, a loud crash erupted. I turned my head to look, more shadows spilling in behind us. We were out, but still far from safe. "Where do we go now?" Amy gasped, fear etched on her face. Then I saw it, a flicker of light in the distance. "That way," I pointed, my heart pounding. There was no time to waste. We sprinted into the night, hoping the light held answers. But in a place when nothing was as it seemed, I could only hope it was a chance not to be wasted. We dashed forward, but as I glanced back, I realized there were more following us, and they were closing in fast. The cold air hit me like a slap as we ran, the dim light ahead beckoning but feeling miles away. Behind us, the ghoulish growls escalated, their hunger palpable. With every step, I could almost feel their claws grazing my back. "Faster!" I urged Amy, her breath coming in quick bursts. It was a reality I never imagined facing. Zombies, or whatever these things were. The thought made my stomach turn, but I couldn't let myself think too deeply. Panic would only slow us down. As we approached the light, I scanned the area. It wasn't a street light. It came from a small building, perhaps a gas station. Praying it was still operational, I pushed forward. Glass crackled under our feet as we sprinted across the gravel. "Do you think it's safe?" Amy asked, her voice shaky with uncertainty. "No idea," I replied, my instincts kicking into overdrive. "But it's better than being out here." We reached the door, and I pulled it open without hesitation. The jingle of a bell echoed through the dimly lit interior, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. I glanced back. The creatures were emerging from the darkness, their grotesque forms more defined now. They clawed at the doorway, trying to break free. "Inside!" I shouted, yanking Amy in just as one of them lunged forward. The door slammed shut behind us, but it seemed only a temporary fortress. The gas station was a mess. Empty snack bags lined the floor, and a flickering neon sign buzzed in the corner. I ducked behind the counter, hoping it would afford some cover. "We need to find something we can use as a barricade," I whispered. The gas pumps outside stood eerily still, and the buzzing sign was the only reminder that life had once thrived here. I turned to look at Amy, who was wide-eyed as she scanned the room. What now? I caught a glimpse of something behind the counter, a baseball bat. I reached for it, gripping it tight. This will have to do. Just then, a loud bang reverberated through the gas station. I jumped, heart racing. One of those creatures had started to hammer against the door, the sound reverberating like a death knell. "They're coming for us," Amy said, fear washing over her face. "I know. We need to find a back exit. There might be a way out," I replied, searching frantically. I spotted a door at the rear of the station, partly hidden by shelves. "Let's check that out." Moving carefully, we hopped over the counter and crept toward the back. Each step felt like a lifetime as screams echoed in my mind. Just as we neared the door, a crash resonated, and I turned, adrenaline surging. One of the creatures had pushed through the front door, its rotting form stumbling inside. "Now, go!" I yelled, shoving the door open. We burst out into the night again, but my heart sank when I realized we were not alone. A larger group of the creatures lurked just beyond the building, their eyes trained on us. "Outnumbered," Amy said, though I could see the tremor in her hands. "Stay close," I urged, swinging the bat, ready to fight. The small gas station had offered a momentary respite, but now the reality hit hard. As we prepared to face the threat, I spotted something glinting among the dirt and debris nearby. "Over there," I pointed, as a plan crystallized in my mind. "Is it a weapon?" Amy asked, following my gaze. "Maybe. Let's find out." But just as I moved in for a closer look, the ground beneath us trembled. I looked up, and my worst fears began to unfold. More shadows were closing in on us from every direction. "We don't have much time," I muttered, feeling the walls of terror closing in. This wasn't just some abandoned town. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. As the shadows converged, I felt the weight of panic squeezing my chest. "Over there! That could be a weapon!" I yelled, pointing at a rusted metal pipe jutting out from behind a broken pump. I reached for it, glancing back at the horde, urgency fueling my movements. "Get it quick!" Amy shouted, barely able to contain her anxiety. I wrenched the pipe free from the debris. It was heavier and sturdier than it looked, better for cracking skulls than the baseball bat. I swung it experimentally, feeling the strength of it in my hands. "All right, we can do this." Just then, a shriek shattered the night. A bald figure lunged from the darkness, its mouth wide open, revealing teeth caked with something dark and viscous. A feeling of dread washed over me as I narrowly dodged its clawing hands, swinging the pipe down with all my strength. Crack! The sound was sickening, but I didn't have time to process it. The creature fell to the ground with an unsettling thud. Other heads turned toward us, drawn by the commotion. "More are coming!" Amy yelled, backing closer to me. "We can't stay here," I blurted. We had to move. "Follow me!" We raced toward the far side of the gas station, weaving through the wreckage. My heart pounded in rhythm with my hurried footsteps. I spotted an old van, the kind that seemed permanently parked, its side door ajar. That might be our way out. As we dashed toward it, the smell of rot grew stronger. I could hear them closing in, the growls rising in volume, a chorus of death hungry for its next meal. I barely had time to breathe before another creature appeared from behind the van, its yellowed eyes fixed on me. With a swift motion, I swung the pipe again, but this time my aim faltered as it raked its claws across my arm. Pain shot through me. I gritted my teeth and swung back, striking its face. The creature stumbled and fell, but I could feel the blood dribbling from my wound. "Are you okay?" Amy cried, panic etched across her face. "No time!" I shouted through clenched teeth. "Get in the van!" We scrambled inside, the metal sliding door barely closing before another zombie slammed against it. My breath came faster, fighting against the waves of pain in my arm. The van was surprisingly spacious, but filled with tangled wires and crumpled fast food wrappers. "Start it!" I urged, gripping the pipe tightly in one hand and holding on to the dashboard with the other. "We need to get out of here." Amy fumbled with keys that were left dangling from the ignition. I heard the familiar click as she twisted it. Nothing. My heart sank. "Try again, please!" "Come on, come on." Her voice trembled as she turned the key, desperation thickening the air. Finally, the engine sputtered to life, but it sounded weak, almost as if it, like us, was barely hanging on. "Let's go!" I yelled, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The creature outside continued to batter against the door, but I didn't look. I focused on the road ahead, praying for an escape. As the tires spun in the gravel, something shifted in the darkness ahead. A flicker of movement caught my attention. "Stop the van!" I shouted, fear gripping me once again as I saw a figure step into the path. Amy screeched to a halt, and as the dust settled, my heart dropped. Another human? But their eyes were vacant, a chilling smile stretching across their face. They weren't like us anymore. That's when I realized we weren't just fighting for our lives against the undead, but against a world that had turned upside down. The figure stood in the beams of our headlights, its smile stretching wider, as if savoring our fear. I could see details now. Its clothes were tattered, and a stain marred the side of its neck. My instincts screamed at me to run, but Amy was frozen in place, staring wide-eyed at what used to be a person. "Move!" I yelled, snapping my fingers in front of her face. The creature took a hesitant step forward, its head cocked to the side. She blinked and quickly stomped on the gas. The van lurched forward, tires screeching as we abandoned the path our fateful encounter had taken. Yet, just as we thought we had escaped, I felt the van swerve violently. It wasn't just the uneven ground. Something had struck the side. "What was that?" Amy exclaimed, her voice thick with panic. "That thing," I replied, glancing back through the rear window. The figure had followed us, running haphazardly despite its injuries. "It's coming!" "Is it a—" Amy didn't finish her question. The van shuddered as it bumped over an unseen obstruction. We were just past the gas station now, racing down a dark road that twisted and turned like a serpent. I surveyed our surroundings, hoping for a safe place to regroup. Trees loomed on either side, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. "Look for lights," I urged, "anywhere that seems—" A sudden crash from the back interrupted me. I twisted around just in time to see the figure smear its bloodied hands against the rear windshield, its face pressed up against the glass, eyes wild with hunger. "Get it off!" Amy screamed, swerving to shake the creature off. "Just drive!" I hollered, gripping the dashboard as we bounced over uneven ground. Desperation coursed through me. Would we ever be free from this nightmare? The creature clambered up the rear of the van, and I could see its mouth moving, but its sounds were muffled by
the engine's roar. Fueled by adrenaline, I grabbed the metal pipe again, ready to swing. "Wait!" Amy shouted, her eyes wide. "Don't make it mad! I have to defend us. Just keep driving." As I wound down the window, ready to strike, a blinding light flooded the interior. I squinted against the glare. Just ahead, a blockade appeared, flashing lights and the silhouettes of armed figures. My heart thudded. "Stop the van," a voice ordered, booming from a megaphone. "Step out with your hands raised." "We can't," I yelled back, my panic escalating. "There's a maniac in the back." "Do it now," the voice demanded again, insistent. I felt my stomach churn. Were these people friends or more threats? Desperate, I shouted back. "We're not infected, please!" But time was slipping away, the figure still battering the rear door, its face contorted in a horrible imitation of human desperation. Amy looked at me, her eyes pleading. We had to make a choice, risk the unknown or face what was behind us. Just then, someone on the outside shouted, "Get ready!" I had a split second to decide. My gut twisted with fear. Then everything went blurry. All I could hear was the shouting, the pounding on the door, and the fading hope of salvation. Bright white beams pierced the darkness, making everything around us feel more surreal. I briefly caught a glimpse of the armed figures, their faces hidden behind masks. The tension in the air was thick enough to slice. My heart raced as my instinct screamed at me to do something. "Are you ready?" the voice barked again. The shout snapped my focus back. The pounding on the back door intensified, and I grasped the pipe harder, bracing for whatever was about to happen. "Please, we're escaping something," I shouted into the chaos. "We're not infected." "Step out or we'll shoot." Amy glanced at me, her face pale, the world outside swirling into shadow. In a split second, the tension coiled tighter. I could feel every muscle in my body readying to act, but unsure whether to trust these new figures or give in to the horror behind us. I shouted again, "We need your help!" Then, with a bone-rattling thud, the rear door gave way. My stomach dropped. I turned just in time to see the figure tumble inside. It fell forward, but its gaze was fixed on me, wild and hungry. I swung the pipe, connecting with a sickening thud. "Get it off us!" Amy cried, her voice a mix of terror and disbelief. In that moment of impact, the creature's attention broke. It howled, a guttural sound that sent fresh chills down my spine as it reared back. I scrambled to shove it back out, adrenaline coursing through me. "Now!" I screamed at Amy, hardly aware of where I was pointing. We had to make a choice, and fast. She slammed her foot onto the gas, and we shot forward. The sudden acceleration jolted the creature backwards, forcing it into the darkness beyond the van. But not before an arm lashed out, catching me across the chest with surprising force. I gasped, pain radiating through me. "I can't see," Amy yelled, swerving wildly as I fought to regain my footing. "Just find a way to get around." I could barely finish the sentence when another shot rang out. Boom! The sound exploded in the night, echoing through the trees. I turned to see feathers fly from the tuft of the nearby branches. "They're shooting at us!" I yelled, panicking. "Get down!" Amy ducked as another shot missed us, striking a nearby tree with a loud crack. I could hear the voice from the blockade barking orders again. "Get them out of the car!" The sound of resigned violence grew louder as I felt the van's momentum change. Behind us, the figure had regained its footing, but it couldn't keep up with the van's speed. I stole a glance, half expecting to see it fade into the night, but the truth was more horrifying than I imagined. "Look out!"
I spun around just in time to see headlights blocking our path ahead. The van skidded, tires screeching as Amy veered to the side. Then, everything went dark. A musty silence enveloped us, and panic crawled up my spine. The engine sputtered and died. I struggled to see anything in the near absolute darkness. Just before my heart sank completely, I realized we weren't alone. "Someone's here," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. "What?" Amy replied, shaking. "Someone's in the vehicle." In the pitch blackness, the weight of their presence was undeniable. I could sense them watching. That realization sent cold chills racing through me, and with it came a dreadful realization. I had no idea who they were or what they wanted. "Hello?" I croaked out, my voice trembling. Then a breathless laugh sliced through the stillness. "Welcome to the nightmare." The darkness wrapped around us like a thick blanket, suffocating and oppressive. I couldn't see, but I could feel a presence looming, breathing in sync with my quickening heartbeat. The laugh echoed in my mind, chilling and devoid of humanity. I clenched my fist around the metal pipe, my only semblance of security, an object that now felt woefully inadequate. "Who's there?" I blurted, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound authoritative. The weight of fear hung in the air, thick with the scent of decay. "Don't be scared," the voice cooed, dripping with mockery. "You're part of our collection now." For a moment, I thought I might scream, but instead, I forced myself to breathe. "This is not the end," I told myself. I had to stay in control. I had to find a way out. "What do you want?" I demanded, attempting to mask the tremors in my voice with anger. There was a moment of silence, and then the laughter resumed, lower this time, almost intimate. "What do we want?" The voice lingered on the
Words like a wicked melody. "The same as anyone, I suppose. Companionship. This town needs friends." "Friends?" I spat, a surge of resolve igniting within me. "You mean you want to feast on us?" A rustle echoed close, silencing my anger. I turned toward Amy, who still sat petrified beside me. "We need to get out," I whispered urgently. My mind raced with possibilities. There had to be an escape. Suddenly, I felt the van lurch as if something outside was pawing at it, ignoring the fallen debris and darkness. The muffled sounds of the chaos seemed to heighten. It was only a matter of time. "Where's the exit?" I asked Amy, urgency clinging to every syllable. "There's a side door," she stammered, glancing towards the fading moonlight peeking through the front windshield. Still clutching the pipe, I motioned for her to move. "Okay, on 3, we go for it." "Are you sure?" Amy's eyes were wide, brimming with doubt. "No," I shook my head fiercely. "We have to, or it won't matter anymore." Before my thoughts could spiral, I counted down. 1, 2, 3. We burst from the back of the van, arms shielding our faces as we collided with the cold night air. A cacophony of sounds enveloped us, the warbling cries of creatures blending with laughter, not the safe kind. The truth loomed heavy on our shoulders. Salvation wasn't waiting. As we sprinted toward a line of trees at the edge of the clearing, I could hear the sounds of pursuit grow louder behind us. Shadows began to slink forward, melding with darkness as the twisted faces of the creatures emerged, horrific echoes of the people they once were. "Don't look back," I shouted, pulling Amy along as we raced through the brush. Tree branches whipped against our skin, sharp and unforgiving. Each step felt like a leap into the unknown, and I couldn't shake the growing desperation that this wouldn't hold true for long. The town receded behind us, but ahead, darkness awaited, an insatiable void. We stumbled together, limbs heavy with exhaustion, while desperation clawed at our heels. I didn't dare slow down. I couldn't risk it.
"Where are we going?" Amy gasped, nearly tripping over the uneven ground. "Anywhere that isn't here," I replied, pushing through foliage. In lieu of strategy, instinct drove our flight. We just need to keep moving. Just then, a distant beam of light pierced through the trees. A flicker of hope surged within me. "There!" My voice broke through the night as I pointed toward the glow. We veered toward it, willing our exhausted bodies to push forward. As we drew closer, the light solidified into a silhouette of a shelter. The realization that not all options were exhausted filled me with a renewed urgency. But would there be others waiting? Friends or foes? A part of me felt as if any human warmth had withered away, but we had to take the risk. When we reached the structure, my breath came
Out in ragged gasps. I hesitated at the door. It looked rickety, splintered, and precariously hanging, but this could be our chance. I threw it open, the creaking door letting out an eerie scream. Inside, a dimly lit lobby awaited. Dust covered every surface, and remnants of old furniture littered the floor. But more importantly, there was a set of stairs leading down. My instincts screamed at me to explore below, where shadows would abide less. But then I stopped. What if it meant facing something worse? Every rational part of me warned against the unknown chamber. I turned, glancing at Amy's face, mirrored confusion and fear shining back at me. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her eyes darting back towards the door we had just burst through. The deranged laughter rang out again, louder, and it seeped into the very fabric of my being. "They're coming," I said, the dread pooling in my chest. I looked back inside the room one last time, weighing our options. But before I could speak, the door I had just opened creaked wider, as if the shadows themselves were extending an invitation. With no time for rational thought, I grabbed Amy's hand. "Down," I urged, leading her toward the staircase. As we descended, the darkness wrapped around us like an obsidian cloak, but the sounds of what lay above began to fade. A flickering bulb barely lit the basement's corridor. Crouched in the heaviness there, I struggled to swallow the shroud of fear pressing against me. "Is it safe?" Amy whispered again, hesitating on the last step. I don't know." I turned my gaze toward the darkness ahead. Just then, echoes filtered down from the door above, hungry and relentless. I squeezed Amy's hand tighter. "Why did we come here?" she whispered, voice trembling. "I don't regret it," I admitted finally, though I felt the weight of despair crawl at my back. "We could be safe," she said, but fear gnawed at her certainty. "But at what cost?" I murmured, looking deeper into the abyss. We stood at the precipice of choices, two lost souls entangled within a haunted town's dark embrace, searching for answers that may never come. What lay before us could spark a new beginning or spell the ultimate end. But I knew one thing: whatever waited ahead would be nothing less than a reckoning. Stepping forward, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was teetering on the edge of the dark truth. Shadows danced around us, whispering secrets of the town and things better left unsaid. The deeper we went, the more pressing the darkness felt. Our fate was sealed, but how we would endure remained uncertain, as life often is, amid whispers of horror, waiting and watching in the shadows.